Greetings everyone, welcome to Dark Souls 2. My name is Alarian and this is the first video in the playthrough portion of the Safer Souls series. In this video I'm going to be skipping these animations so you don't need to watch them, but I'm going to be taking you to Majula for the first time, and we are going to then proceed on to the first dungeon, which is the Forest of Fallen Giants. And over the course of these videos, we're going to essentially complete the Forest of Fallen Giants. I'm not going to show you everything, but I am going to take you through all the important points. And you will go. We will go to the first boss, rather. That's the Lost Giant. And we will then go on and complete the final boss in that dungeon, the Pursuer. And the reason we're going to do that is because most people think the Pursuer is very difficult and he's really hard to take on early in the game. And I'm going to show that that's actually very possible with this build as long as we're following a few basic rules. Now this is the point where you get to initially choose your character information. So we'll finally actually get a name and we'll get to choose our character class. And you can see here I have a hard time figuring out exactly how you use the name tool in this game. I keep deleting it, but we do get to create it. So there's my character Safer Soul, who I've been using in all of these videos, and you probably saw in the prior videos. And then you get to choose a class, and for our build, especially since we want to start off going strength early, I think the way to go is probably the Knight. And the reason I would suggest the Knight is he starts off with a good starting weapon with a broadsword. It's very fast, it's very effective. But he also starts off with a decent amount of health. He starts off with decent strength. And they give us a good early lead on damage so that we can kill off our enemies very quickly. I would not suggest the Swordsman. The reason is because he starts off with a build that really suggests more of a dual wielding style, and he starts off with high dex, and that high dex is going to actually hamstring us a little bit early if we're going to go for a strength build. Alright, and you do get to choose a gift, and I'm going to take the Petrified Something. That is an item that we can trade in with the Crows, Smooth and Silky, or Dinah and Tillo, and they will give us the opportunity for an item or the opportunity for an upgrade piece. Now, you saw there that this is a character who has the pre-ordered DLC, and one of the rules that I'm going to follow for this playthrough is to show that we can do this with just the basic game. So I'm automatically not going to use any of the pre-ordered DLC. And in fact, there's actually only one piece that's even arguably useful at this point, and that's a shield. But we are going to be able to get a shield after getting to Majula, so we're just going to do that there. And just as an FYI, there are a couple of rules I'm going to follow on this playthrough. And the first rule that I really want to follow for me, and this is not something I suggest following for you, is that I'm not going to use any player summons. And the reason for that is I want to show how this build and these game behaviors that we're going to learn going through this dungeon are very effective, and they can be done by anybody, and you don't need to rely on things like player summons in order to get through the game. And so I'm only going to be using NPC summons because those are always going to be available for anybody to use when they want them. Player summons are a little bit more iffy. You may not find them, or you may. But I'm not going to use them. Now, the question is, should you use them? And I would actually suggest, if you are playing the game for the first time, give the bosses a shot. Go in and take a look at them and see if you can beat them on your own. But if you're having any problem at all, yes, absolutely use player summons. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Co-op is a feature of this game. It is built in by design, and in fact, I think a lot of the game is tuned to take advantage of the co-op features of the game. So I actually think some of the bosses expect you to summon for them. So there's absolutely no reason not to summon, and don't let anybody say otherwise. This is a very much a co-op game. Alright, and I've actually sped up the gameplay through the tutorial section a little bit because really this is just information we've covered in the prior videos, and you can get through here pretty safely. I don't really see any reason why you should run into too much problems. There's maybe one fight near the end of the tutorial section that you really want to pay attention to, but as you're going through here, things you want to work on primarily are target reticle control. You want to make sure you're learning how to target enemies quickly, switching back if you have multiple enemies, and just getting used to your move sets and how quickly your character moves, how quickly they attack. And here are the two Crows, Dinah, and Tillo, and we can use the leave command from the inventory screen to drop items for them. And you can leave items several times, but you can only ever leave one at a time, which means you can drop an item, drop another item, drop another item, drop another item, but you can't drop a stack of items. So one of the tricks you can do is if you have several things you want to turn into them, and primarily these are going to be smooth and silky stones that you pick up throughout the course of the game, you can drop several of them and then pick up the item that they replace it with. So if you drop 5 of them as separate one-piece stacks, they'll give you 5 separate one-piece returns. All right, so what you want to be going through doing here is just getting used to the game. And the other thing I want you to do is there's a couple enemies in this area that shoot arrows. And I want you to pay attention to the sound of the arrows, because that's a sound that there's a drawback sound for bows, and then there's a twang when the bow goes off. And you're going to want to get used to paying attention to that, because throughout the game, you're going to run into several situations where you're fighting enemies in melee range, and there may be other enemies sniping at you. And so you want to be able to hear that sound and recognize it when it's coming in, so that you know you're being attacked by an archer. Now, as for these fog walls that you see me go through, throughout the game, for the most part, you're going to find that those are an indicator of boss fights. This is going to be a boss fight. However, especially in the first couple of dungeons, they use the fog walls as an indicator of progress. This is an area you haven't quite made it to, so here's a fog wall to let you know you've progressed. That's very typical for the Souls series. They tend to do it in the early dungeons and then forget to do it in the later dungeons. So we will talk about, when we get to the later portion of the playthrough, how to really take a guess when you get to a fog wall. Is this a progression fog wall, or is this a boss fog wall? Alright, and as I come out of this final fog wall area, right off to my right side is a beach. And I'm going to turn around up here and look back at it. And you'll be able to see an enemy that looks like the backside of a hippopotamus. At this point in the game, I definitely recommend don't go down there and fight him. You're really not prepared at this point in the game to do that. The only way that that would even be viable for most brand new characters is if you happen to be an archer and have a ton of extra arrows, or a caster and you have a lot of spells. And I did a sorcery playthrough on this, and I just didn't have enough spells to kill those enemies. There are actually 2 of them down there. Alright, and for players who are new to Dark Souls 2, welcome now to Majula. And this is the hub zone where you're going to spend a lot of time in your game. It is one of the only truly safe zones in the game, for the most part. However, you are safe from invasion here. And this is the place where you're going to come to buy items, to level up, and to take a look at your covenants, and generally to rest in between bonfires and dungeons. And over here on the left side, you can see the blacksmith, and he's sitting outside his shop. And he's going to be one of our first priorities. We want to make sure we get the blacksmith active. So based on what he said, we need to find a key for him, and we're going to do that real early. And here is the Emerald Herald. And this is probably the most important NPC in the game. She is the NPC that you're going to use to level up. So we're going to go through all of her dialogue, and we're going to get it to the point where she will allow us to start leveling up. So we're looking for Bearer Seek Lest. There it is, and here is the level up screen. And you can see right off the bat we don't quite have enough souls to level up yet, but we will get them pretty soon, so we're going to move on. And as you come up this large monument, you will find Warrior Salden, and he is the first of the Covenant Keepers that we are going to run into in this game, and he is the leader of a covenant called the Way of Blue. And if you talk to him, he'll give you the option to join the Way of Blue, and that'll give you a ring. And if you wear this ring, if you are invaded in PvP, as you're playing the game, wearing the ring will give a chance for a member of another covenant called the Blue Sentinels to come in and help you. So you will get an automatic helper player to help fend off any aggressive PvP. And since this is safer souls, we're going to go ahead and do that. I don't see any reason not to join the Way of Blue. However, I will tell you that the chance for you to be invaded at this point in the game, or even for the first 2/3, is very, very low, just because of the way the mechanics of invasion and soul memory work. Okay, so we're going to look around. I'm going to gather up some items, but one of the first things we're going to want to do is get a shield before we go out into the main world. So once I've gathered up a couple more items, we're going to go grab a shield that's easily available here in Majula, or rather right outside Majula. And up here, there is another covenant. And this covenant in this marker on my right side is the Company of Champions. And that is a PvE covenant that significantly increases the difficulty of the game and also disables all friendly summons. So I would highly recommend that, especially on your first playthrough, you actually take no part in the Company of Champions and avoid it like the plague. Alright, so coming down this tunnel, right next to where that ledge was, we're going to be able to go down and grab a shield. And we're only going to go in as far as we need to get that shield. So as I come down the stairs on the left side, there's going to be a little alcove with a chest. And I have to warn you that not all chests in Dark Souls 2 happen to be chests. In fact, there's an enemy called a Mimic, and sometimes you will run into one of those. And if you attempt to interact with a Mimic like you would with a chest, then it's probably going to grab you and eat your face and kill you. So it's a bit of a spoiler to tell you that, but unfortunately there is no graphical indication that I found to tell a Mimic apart from a chest. So I do think it's fair for you to know that. So one of the things I did is I took a swing at the chest, and if I had no effect, or if my weapon clanged off of the chest, then that's pretty much a chest and it's safe to interact with it. However, if it happens to be a Mimic, you will see a health bar and it will start to take damage, and that's your indication that you need to keep attacking. Finally, we're going to come over here to Mofflin the Armorer. He's in this building in Majula, and he'll be sitting on the floor here, and he is the merchant that has the first shield that we want to really upgrade to. And this is a kite shield. It has 90% damage resistance, and it is a pretty solid shield for the early game. It's going to take us through most of the Forest of Fallen Giants, but until then, we're stuck with the Crimson Parma that we just picked up from that chest, which only has 75% damage resistance. And then finally, this cat on the table. This is Sweet Shalquar, and she's essentially the keeper of the covenants for Majula. She has the option to allow you to look at the covenants that you've joined, see what level you've gotten into each of those covenants, and she also has some items that you can buy, though at this point in the game, none of those have any real bearing on the game, and we can't afford them anyway. So I'm going to come back here to the bonfire, and what I really should have done when I first got here is light the bonfire. But we're going to light the bonfire now and rest, and this will bring us up to the bonfire menu. And you can see here, you can travel, and that'll allow you to warp to any bonfire you've been before. We can also attune spells. However, this character has no intelligence or faith, and no attunement slot, so I have no ability to use spells. And finally, there's the burn menu. And the burn menu will allow you to burn a human effigy, a sublime bone dust, or a bonfire ascetic here. And let me just tell you right now, don't burn the human effigy. What human effigies are used for is to restore your character's humanity. And you'll want to use that prior to any bosses. It'll give you back your full health bar. It will make player and NPC summons available. You must be in full humanity in order to do that. But in order to use the human effigy in that manner, you need to use it either from your inventory or from your item toolbar. You can't actually burn it and get the same effect. What happens when you burn the human effigy is that you actually block all co-op or really player invasions for the period of about an hour after you burn it. So it's really there for you to create a little bit more privacy in your game, and there may be times that you want to do that. Alright, now that we have done what we need to do in Majula, we're going to head down towards the Forest of Fallen Giants for the first time. And once I get down here, where I'm just sort of running in, we're going to start practicing by moving through the dungeon for the first time using our block. And you can see I'm messing around with my block keys there. Alright, and when you come to this lever, this is going to be basically your entrance to your first dungeon. So here we go. Alright, now we're going to start practicing some basic things that we need to do when we're entering dungeons. And the first is, you can see I'm not moving very fast and I'm keeping my shield up. As soon as you, or as long as you have full endurance, you want to make sure that when you're moving, especially in new areas, you're keeping your shield up and you're looking around, especially checking corners and just looking for any hidden items or enemies that might be in any room that you enter. Now, there was a path down, but I also saw this little these logs that led down to a chest. So I'm going to check out and see what's in the chest. However, I'm going to take it really slowly because the water below me, I can't see a bottom in it, and that's generally a good indication that if I fall in it, I'm going to die. So I'm going to take a whack at the chest and open it up. And I'm going to grab the human effigy out of it. Now I can just go back up and come at this item that you can see off in the distance from the other direction. However, I'm going to go ahead and jump it. And there's a couple items here that I can grab. Now, as I come down here to where the quarter tees, you can see I'm going to look around, I'm going to keep my shield up, and I'm going to come down here really cautiously because I'm not sure what I'm going to face. And if I stay to the left, I'll see the end of that tunnel coming down from the first area. And here's my first enemy. So I can see him, I'm going to target him, and I'm going to draw him back. And wait for him to... Okay, so I didn't quite wait long enough, you can see, and I actually took some damage there that was completely avoidable. So I really want to make sure that when I'm bringing enemies back and I'm trying to get a clean attack point, I wait for them to go into an actual recovery. So I see this next enemy, and I'm going to try to approach him to get his attention, but he doesn't seem interested. And because I moved down forward, I now have two more enemies coming at me from the left side. So I'm going to back up to where I think I'm safe. And one thing I did notice was that my attack with the broadsword is definitely faster than these guys are on their initial attack. So if I get the first attack in before their animation starts, I should be able to hit them and kill them. Alright, and looking off to the right, there's an item over here, and if I was paying attention, which I was here, I'll admit I missed this my first playthrough, there's actually a bonfire here. And this is a good bonfire to practice on, because what's going to happen is when we rest at the bonfire, it's going to respawn all of our enemies. It's going to reset the durability, nice name, it's going to reset the durability on all of our items, and it's going to restore any Estus that we've used at this point. So this is a really good point for you if you're not quite comfortable with the controls to go ahead and rest at the bonfire, come out, kill these enemies, and get used to fighting them, and then go back to the bonfire and rest and do it again until you feel a little bit more comfortable. And if you can do that with taking very little damage, clearing out all the enemies around here, then you're probably good to go on. Alright, so I'm going to draw these guys back because I know there's an archer on the left side who's been shooting at me. I've been seeing his arrows going by. So I don't want to fight where he can see me and shoot me while I'm fighting. So I'm going to hang out, wait for these guys to recover. And it looks like this guy's tethered, so I'm just going to attack him. Alright, so as I go around here, I'm going to put my shield up because I know there's this archer over here, and I don't want to take any extra damage. And as I approach, I see a guy attacking me on the right side. So I want to back up to where I'm not vulnerable to that archer while I'm fighting this guy. And I kind of get pushed around a little bit, but you see I wait until he's done with his attack, and then I follow up with my own. And then I put the shield up, juke a little bit to the side, avoid the arrows, and wait for him to attack. And there we have a clean place to attack back. Alright, now I saw an item down here. I'm going to go grab that, but yeah, that's a bad guy. Here's a tip. One of the things you're going to find a lot is enemies lying on the ground. And if you don't remember actually killing that enemy, then chances are they're not dead, and they're going to pop up at some point as you walk past them or try and grab an item. So they're really there as sort of an ambush trap. So every time you see an enemy that you're not sure you killed, go ahead and give it a whack. Now, as you come up this ladder, I kind of recommend staying at the top of the ladder for a second and looking around, because at the top you're going to have 3 very aggressive hollows, and you're going to need to deal with them. And, I just took an arrow in the side. So there's even a guy shooting at me from somewhere high up on my left there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this tree in between me and that archer and wait for a moment to attack these guys. And if I look around, I can see there's this little open spot here, and there's going to be a ladder that'll help me get up to that archer. Now, again, just because the archer was all I saw, doesn't mean that's all that's up here. So we want to be careful and keep our shield up, and there are 2 more enemies waiting. So no real room for me to dance around and try and avoid damage here. So I'm going to just take the hits on my shield and finish these guys off. And you can see I've taken some damage here, even though I haven't really taken any hits, and that's because the 75% damage reduction of the shield doesn't mitigate all the damage. So I'm still taking damage with this, and I do want to get rid of this shield as soon as I can, but for the time being, it's what we have to go with. All right, and you can practice rolling here. or you can just block this guy's attack straight up. But we took him out. There's a nice little message. And I will tell you that if you come here with a lot of spells, or you got some sort of ranged attack like a bow and a lot of arrows, then you can safely attack this knight who's been sitting at the base of the tower. Now, I only have my sword, I only have my shield, so I'm not really sure that that's smart at this point. And clearly he's not going anywhere and he's not being aggressive, so I'm going to focus on being safe, and I'm going to go ahead and ignore him for the time being. I can always come back later and deal with him at another time. Alright, so picking up a few items, and it looks like there's a guy lying there. Yep. So we'll take him out. And here's another fog wall. And this one is just a passage fog wall, just letting us know we're progressing a little bit. And here we want to be careful. Anytime you're in tight corridors, you want to really especially be very aware of your corners. So anytime you come up to one, make sure you're looking around, and you can see right there, there's an enemy waiting for me. And if I wasn't aware of him and I wasn't blocking, he probably would have done significant damage. So we've avoided that, and I can see at the end of this corridor there's another enemy. He doesn't seem to be attacking yet. And a door, and as I approach the door, a couple of enemies rush out to attack me, so I'm going to probably do better than that. That was a little bit too aggressive and sloppy. But I've taken them out, and now I should be okay to go in this room and check it out. And you can see I'm going to roll around and break the boxes. And people sometimes ask, why do you roll to break boxes? And one of the reasons for that is durability. But one of the reasons is, going back to Dark Souls 1, there are a lot of friendly NPCs that you might find in barrels or around boxes, and you would need to actually break those to get access to those people. And so it became a habit for a lot of Dark Souls players to roll into barrels and roll into boxes to break them so that they wouldn't damage a friendly NPC. Now, we got a little bit further to go here. We come to a staircase, and looking up it with our shield up, it looks like there's 1 and 2 enemies up there. And there's an archer up front and another guy, and I don't know what he's doing standing on that tree root. So I'm going to actually just get by so I can see a little bit more here. And it looks like we have 3 immediate enemies. And we got 1 archer, and looks like that other guy's chucking fire bombs at me, but that's probably not very long range. So if I back away a bit, I should be able to get outside of his range. Yeah, it looks like he can't do anything. So I'm going to wait for this guy's animation to end and kill him on his recovery. Avoid that. Shield up. Alright, and I'm going to get a little bit ridiculously aggressive here. This is pretty bad, but you know, you can see. I took a lot more damage there than I really needed to. And as I killed him, my targeting reticle popped up here, telling me there's another enemy around here, and there he is. So draw out his attack. We'll punish him on his recovery. And there's another item here, and this is actually a buckler. It's another small shield like the one we're using. And if we take a look at it, you can see it's got the same physical damage resistance, and a slightly better elemental resistances, but it has 5 less stability. And so far all we've really faced is physical damage other than that firebomb, and I think the stability is going to be a little bit more useful here. So we're just going to stick with the Crimson Parma. And in fact, we're about done with the Crimson Parma anyway. Alright, up here on the left, there is an area I can go down. If I look down there, I won't see a bonfire. And at this point, we should really be thinking, well, we've made some progress. There should be a bonfire around here. And since I can't see one in the lower area, I'm not going to assume it's down there yet. And generally, if you have you can progress here area, or here's a door, you pretty much want to default to the door. So we're going to come over here to this door. And this is going to give us access to our next bonfire. And this is the Cardinal Tower bonfire, and one we're going to be visiting a lot in this playthrough. And as I walked in, I saw a merchant on the right. This is a merchant named Valencia, and she is an important merchant for us, and also will demonstrate the importance of talking to all the people that you come across in the game. Because most of them, once you've met certain requirements in the dungeons where you find them, and then you've talked to them through all of their dialogue, then they will eventually move to Majula and become available in Majula for you for the rest of the playthrough. Now you can see here she had a key for 1,000 souls, and that was the key to the blacksmith shop, so now we're going to be able to unlock the blacksmith. Alright, so talk through all of her dialogue. Alright, and it's time to head back to Majula for the first time. First of many. And what we're really looking to do here is to unlock the blacksmith and then use some of these souls we picked up. And we picked up a few soul items, and we're going to go ahead and consume those because there's no reason not to. We are, again, looking to try and get that shield off of Mothlan, so we're going to do that in a second. Now you can see the blacksmith should now be available, but he hasn't moved yet. And the way you make NPCs move in this game is you reload the area. So the primary way to do that is simply teleport away at a bonfire to another location, then come back, and he should have moved in and taken up his normal position as blacksmith. But we're going to consume these items because we need 1,500 souls for that shield that we saw. But what this shield is going to do is it's going to give us a lot more physical damage reduction, a bit more stability, and overall just be a better shield for getting through this early dungeon. So it's going to be a pretty big upgrade for us for the first portion of the game. And you see that pretty much increased everything across all stats for her defenses, and that's good. Alright, and what I could do now is I could level up my character one time, and that probably would be a smart thing to do. I'm sitting at 11 strength at this point, and one of the items that I do want to grab here from the blacksmith is 1,200 souls, but requires 12 strength, and that's the mace. And that's an item that's going to, again, carry us through the rest of the Forest of Fallen Giants. However, I can either buy the mace and not be able to use it, or I can level up one time and not be able to buy the mace. But I'm going to go ahead and buy the mace just because I like to have it in my inventory and I can worry about leveling up in a little bit. It's pretty much 6 of one, half dozen the other. Probably get better use by leveling up and just getting that extra point of strength, but that's okay. So now you can see the blacksmith is available. You'll have to talk to him a little bit before he'll get his normal selling menu. And you can see he will repair any items that you have actually broken. Normally, durability will repair automatically at a bonfire, but if an item actually breaks, you will need to use his repair option. And then we're going to look at his buy menu. And as you go through here, there's some decent items, and that Falchion actually has a B scaling in Dex, which is good, but we're not going for a Dex build at this point. And here you can see the mace has B scaling and strength, and that really fits with where we're going at this point. And the mace actually is a really good weapon because it does extra damage against armored enemies, so this is a really nice pickup at this point in the game. So I'm going to grab the mace. Now I don't have enough to level yet, so I can't quite use it. I need one more point in strength to do that. So we're going to go out, and if you remember as we came up the ladder, there was that lower area on the left side before the bonfire door. We're going to go clear that out, and that should give us enough souls to level up, and there's a couple items that we can grab while we're down there. Now, just pay attention to your surroundings. There's a ladder here that leads down through a hole, and that's actually the way to progress deeper into the dungeon. I actually missed that for a while and was running around my first playthrough looking for it, trying to figure out what I had missed, and it was right there next to the bonfire. Alright, as I walk over this scaffolding, I can look down at... yeah, there he is. There's a guy I can see right through those boards in the scaffolding over here, and one here. So when I go down, I need to be really aware that I am vulnerable to being attacked from behind. So I'm going to try and get out of the way after killing that first guy, and then I can take out this guy safely. And as I come up here on the left side, I'm going to see a hole in the wall right there. And the hole in the wall is the way we get back to the tunnel that leads up to the ladder towards the bonfire that we cleared earlier. So that's actually the way out of this area. Alright, so there's another enemy up here. Put up my shield. I don't have any room to dance around, so I'm just going to have to take the hits on my shield and punish his recovery. Okay, we'll go down a little bit further. And you're going to see this tree, which is basically the ledge down for us. And you're going to notice that I'm going to miss an enemy completely. And I don't know, can you see him right in front of us? Obviously I couldn't. That's because these guys are pretty well blended in. So a good way to make sure you're always looking for enemies is, as you're looking around, tap on your right control stick, your targeting stick. Just to make sure there's nothing there hiding from you. If it's in range, you should be able to get it to pop up on your targeting reticle. But because I didn't, I come over here and I get attacked from the right side from enemies I wasn't expecting. Now, luckily, I got my shield up quickly and was able to avoid too much damage, but that was not really the ideal way to get through there. Alright, so there's a couple more enemies up here. I want to separate them, so I'm going to approach this guy, get his attention, and back off. His friend didn't come, so we'll wait for him to attack, and then we'll follow up and hit him. And this other guy looks like he's on break. He's not real interested in us, so okay. Now, I see these two caves on the left side. We're going to go clear those in a minute. But let's clear out this guy, and there's another item up here that we can grab at the end of the area. Up by this barricade, this burning barricade. And that's really as far as we can go down here. Other than those two caves, we basically cleared it out. Now, one of these caves, as I look into it, has a lot of fire on the ground, and that looks kind of dangerous. So we're going to clear out the other one first, just to make sure we actually get whatever's in here. And I'm going to warn you, this next cave has one of the only, there's about 2, maybe 3 in the entire game, traps that I really don't like in this game, because there are no indications that it exists. And as soon as you go down in here, there's 2 enemies who you really had no chance to be able to see before, who are going to stand up, here they are, and then come down and attack you from behind. And luckily on my first playthrough I heard them coming, but it's really not one of the most well telegraphed traps, so I'm just going to straight up tell you that it's there. And thankfully you don't really run into this much again in the rest of the game. But you can see as you come down here, the ground is kind of burning, and there's this salamander that is spewing fire out. But if you time it right, there's a door on the left side that you can come in here and roll in. And there's an item in this chest that you probably want to grab at this point. Now what it is a fire longsword. And it's a longsword that also has fire damage on it. And that sounds really fantastic, and if you came from Dark Souls 1 you might think that that's great. However, keep in mind that in Dark Souls 2, fire scaling for weapons is based on your intelligence and your faith. So the actual amount of fire damage that this is going to do is very minimal on this build. So it sounds like a good item, but it's really, frankly, not. We'd rather just go with something that scales off of strength or strength and dexterity. So I'm going to keep the fire longsword around primarily because it can detonate certain types of barrels, gunpowder barrels in the game, if I need them, or if I run into an enemy who is actually weak to fire. Now you can see I'm going to look for that hole again, and because I'm not paying attention and I'm just sort of being lackadaisical, I go in here and I take a bunch of damage that I should have otherwise avoided. So I really shouldn't have just jumped into that hole without looking to see if there was an enemy waiting. And that's just a good idea. Every time you come to any sort of junction or doorway, you want to make sure you're looking before you go through. Now I'm comfortable with these guys again, and I can be a little reckless here because I know I'm right next to the bonfire. I'm in okay shape, and this is a good place. You want to, again, just practice killing some enemies. You can do that. So I'm going to take them out, and then we're going to head up to the bonfire and head back to Majula and get ourselves set up for the rest of the game. But this should be just about the end of this specific playthrough. Alright, let's head back to Majula. And we should have enough souls now to level up and be able to equip our mace. Alright, and here we are back in Majula. We're going to access the Emerald Watcher, make sure we are able to equip the mace. And in this video, we went through basically the first section of the Forest of Fallen Giants. We got access to the Cardinal Tower bonfire. We have not leveled up yet. We're going to do that for our first time here, but this is going to allow us to use the mace, and it will also, we've also picked up the Silver Eagle Kite Shield. So we have decent starting equipment so that we can continue our playthrough in a little bit better position. Alright, in the next video we're going to go back to the Cardinal Tower bonfire, we're going to continue our way through the dungeon, and we're going to meet the Pursuer for the first time. And as always, everybody, I hope this video helps, and I hope to see you in the next video.